This program deals with devil worship and satanic beliefs. It contains explicit scenes and descriptions of violent crimes and rituals.
Americans are asking who attacked our country.
You have declared a subliminal jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue. And when the band plays hail to the chief, ooh, they point the cannon at you. Lord, it ain't me. It ain't me. I ain't no senator, son. It ain't me. It ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one. No. Some folks are born silver spoon in hand. Lord, don't they help themselves, y'all? But when the tax man comes to the door, Lord, the house look like a rummage sale, yes. It ain't me. It ain't me. I ain't no millionaire son, no, no. It ain't me. It ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one, no.
Everything pertaining to what's happening has never come to the surface. The world will never know the true facts of what occurred, my motives.
Night fell in a different world.
And Iblis is thinking, I should be getting this position, not Adam, and this guy is created from dirt.
How does the army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
And the conspiracy theorists can say what they will, but
I want you to give me power over Adam, and I want you to give me soldiers and minions and all of these things.
Those heads that have so much to gain and have such an ulterior motive for putting a position on me will never look the true facts and come back more to the world.
And who was the grotto leader? Don't remember his name. You don't remember the name of the person who involved you in murder?
Now these people are in very high positions, yeah. Yes.
I ain't no fortunate one.
Welcome back to Subliminal Jihad, episode 125. I am your co-host, Dimitri,
I'm Khalid.
and today we're picking up right where we left off with our extremely big boy chapter of CONTRA 7,
Yes.
which
Big, supersized for a big boy.
very
Um,
supersized.
Yeah. Not like Michael Bloomberg. He won't stop you from having supersized meals and big sodas. He's a big boy. He understands that you need, you know.
Exactly. That's authentically populist, etc.
Yes, exactly.
But
The most populous thing is like, you know, endorsing, like letting people have gigantic, like 2-liter Cokes. That's like true populism, and like trying to take them away is not. And that's
love
the
getting past
that's
the
the difference between
superficial.
socialism and exactly. It's proletarian to drink a 2-liter bottle, but it's service work if
to serve it
Yeah.
is not. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, we are in the wilderness of irony still, as you can tell. And, it was a supersized episode, probably part 1 and part 2 people have listened to at this point. And today we're sitting down to go through, I guess, part 3 and part 4, because we already know it's going to be that long. And this is a pretty dense history. I think where we left off, we just started talking about the very mysterious Castle Bank and Trust in the Bahamas in the 1970s, and how the IRS had discovered that they were essentially a tax dodging sort of money laundering bank for, to a large extent, wealthy account holders in the United States. They were trying to duck paying their taxes. And I think we mentioned at the very end, the single largest account depositor in the Castle Bank and Trust was the Pritzker family. We also said that going on both in the narrative of Alan Bloch's Masters of Paradise and really up to the early 2000s, and in a certain sense up to today, one of the two principals of Castle Trust, Burton W. Cantor, ended up pretty much managing the Pritzker wealth, both of the Pritzker family trust and its literally hundreds of subsidiary corporations, up through his death in the early 2000s, and managed to save them conservatively at least over $100 million on inheritance taxes, and not to mention income taxes or anything else that they are required by law to pay, but I guess they haven't for the last 50 years. But I think we decided today, before jumping back into Masters of Paradise, because we haven't, really dug into a lot of direct dirt on the Pritzkers yet, maybe we'd start with that. And maybe, within this Contra episode, we're going to do a little mini history of the Great American Fortunes segment here to start out with the Pritzker family, because maybe some of you are still wondering, who is this family? How did they become billionaires? Like, who the fuck are they?
Yes, their involvement in, we're in the middle of reading Masters of Paradise by Alan A. Block, and we got to a certain point where we're sort of like getting into the meat of the matter. The Pritzker connection won't come in until a little bit. But I mean, I for myself just wanted to note where we left off, where we were just kind of talking about, we kind of started to riff a little bit about JB Pritzker and his surge, quote unquote, surging popularity of polling at 2% in polls of likely Democratic voters as people who they would support in the primary.
6 cents on Predicted right now. He is a 6% shot according to the bettors. So I shouldn't even say that. I don't want to tip people off, but go pump it now.
Yeah. So and we were discussing whether what is so exciting about all of his policies, and we were talking about his not support for Medicare for all, which is imaginary and chimerical. It's just been sort of suggested that what if he did and how great that would be, but he never really gave any indications that direction. People were pointing to his support for a $15 minimum wage, which every single Democrat supports, including Joe Biden. I think if Joe Biden were governor, I'm sure that he would support such a thing in whatever state he was governor of. I guess Delaware would be. Yeah, I mean, and that's something that many Democratic governors across the country have taken steps to implement or set a timeline for. And then we started talking about something that a lot of his big fans on the sort of irony dirtbag sphere have pointed to, which is, of course, his legalization of marijuana, obviously the most socialist thing that you can do. Very important.
Absolutely. I have to say, I almost even tutted at you. I wouldn't say I ermed you, but I almost tutted a little bit.
I deserved it a bit because I was out of the loop, and my point does stand, because I said it would be different if he had some kind of expungement program where he was expunging weed convictions. But in fact, he does. But my initial point does stand, which is that it doesn't really set him apart, because every Democratic governor who has some kind of, at this point, every Democratic governor who has some kind of marijuana legalization initiative generally pairs that. They've listened, they've learned, and they have some kind of expungement program. Some of them are better than others. I think Massachusetts is really bad, and Illinois is not great. I did read one article that said especially since the pandemic, something 25% of all the expungement petitions that are filed ran into some kind of problem. So it's not this sort of grand jubilee that it might be portrayed as.
Not a mass pardon
by Pritzker's team. Yeah, exactly.
Which honestly, that would probably almost be a more efficient way to do it.
It would be, and it would be better,
and I'll sign it. Basically.
But no, exactly. It's kind of what we had said that it was probably some kind of means tested bullshit thing.
It turns out, yep, it is. And actually, I mean, I couldn't have even predicted it. The fact that we talked about that,
in the process
and then what you found afterwards. And but by the way, I just want to read from Capital News, Illinois, how, because I think he signed this bill in 2020, but this is how it was marketed when JB Pritzker, legalized marijuana. Pritzker signs, quote, most equity-centric marijuana legalization bill in the nation. So it was made legal in January 2020, and his supporters, this most equity-centric. This legislation lives true to the promise to bring justice, equity, and opportunity throughout our state, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton said, by including components focused on repairing the harm caused by the failed war on drugs and decades of policies that cause mass incarceration. Illinois is a national leader with a policy that's a national model. So I guess what makes JB so different is the legalization effort made Illinois the 11th state in the U.S. to legalize marijuana, but the first to pass a comprehensive legislation package through the legislature rather than a ballot initiative. So again, very symbolic, but the fact that he got it passed through the legislature instead of other states where they just voted on it. Like, wow, what a legislative accomplishment, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, wow.
And, he says, this is what JB had to say about it. As the first state in the nation to fully legalize adult use cannabis through the legislative process, Illinois exemplifies the best of democracy, a bipartisan and deep commitment to better the lives of all of our people. He said during the signing ceremony at the Sankofa Cultural Arts and Business Center, quote, legalizing adult use cannabis brings an important and overdue change to our state, and it's the right thing to do. Now, well,
wow.
That's interesting that he thinks that, right? It's interesting that he thinks that. Well, you found something.
I was trying to do like a little bit of self-crit, because I know that he's the reincarnation of Chairman Mao and everything. And I wanted to learn more about his expungement program and his, legalizing marijuana, and to sort of, do a little struggle session with myself to just make sure that I was correct with everything that I was thinking about Pritzker, and that I wasn't having any unfair negative thoughts of this working class billionaire. And in the process of that, I came across this lawsuit that has been filed by a group. What are they called? They're called True Social Equity in Cannabis. Mm-hmm. Despite the name, no association with Trump's social network. It's just, I think they are appealing to the idea that there should be real social equity in cannabis, in contrast to what actually exists in Illinois right now. Because according to their lawsuit, a cartel of influential large companies, including a company associated with the family of Governor J.B. Pritzker, they accuse them of exploiting political connections to improperly dominate Illinois' marijuana marketplace.
Yep,
this is from the Cook County Record, by the way. It's an article by Jonathan Billick on April 20th, 2022. Yeah, so the complaint identifies defendants as Green Thumb Industries, the Akerna Corporation, Certerra Holdings Inc., Verano Holdings Corporation, and Ildisp LLC, a group of companies the complaint labeled collectively as a Chicago cartel. The complaint asserts the Chicago cartel have conspired to allegedly pretend to be competitors when they have actually collectively monopolized the sale of recreational marijuana in Illinois, driving the price of marijuana to levels not seen in other states that have legalized and regulated the sale and use of recreational marijuana. And I did see people I looked into this a little bit further. I saw people on Reddit saying, or, even in the comments on this article saying things like, wow, that explains why the price of weed is still so high here, because it does bear itself out. It's true. What
were the numbers again? There was something ridiculous, compared to California. I don't remember,
but it's it says the complaint asserts that a pound of marijuana that sells for $300 in California can fetch more than $4,000 in Illinois.
Cool.
Jeez. Okay,
very equitable.
Amazing.
Very fucking
great.
equitable.
Equity. The complaint claims that the companies are all connected to the Pritzker, Wrigley, and Kovler families. The Pritzker family, including Illinois Governor Pritzker, gained their fortunes largely from the Hyatt brand of hotels, among other interests. The Wrigley family from their chewing gum and candy companies, and the Kovler family from various business interests, including the Jim Beam bourbon fortune. See, there you go, alcohol. Getting into the weed business.
You were right. Yeah. The koof juice tycoons were fucking getting in on the marijuana industry to monopolize it.
Yes.
It's really that is really fucking wild. It's like a perfect illustration of what we're talking about, with a fake progressive guy from, a billionaire family that is using this kind of rhetoric of equity, inclusion, end the war on drugs, while he's monopolizing the very thing that is going to be, legalized, and then profiting off, reaping super profits off of it by forming, borderline illegal monopolies.
It's really interesting how this, comes to light, and it just serves to explain all these some strange things, like the fact that people had been complaining previously that it's really hard for, despite all the expungement and stuff like that, to try to have an equity focused rollout of legal weed. People have found it to be very hard to get licenses to sell weed. I think that a lot of advocacy groups for people of color have complained about that, that it's usually the sort of established businesses and, the established people who are established in other industries who are able to easily transition into, also dealing in cannabis, whereas people who are trying to get new licenses for businesses have had a lot of difficulty and run into a lot of roadblocks in Chicago and Illinois mysteriously. mysteriously.
Yeah, I mean, mysterious.
And then,
you know
what do you
I-
know? Like, and also, like, why is the price of weed so high? And then it just turns out to be like this weird scam,
Right, and,
by a bunch of like interconnected companies from people who pretend that they're competing when actually they're all collaborating and conspiring to enrich each other and themselves
as a cartel. And this even, I think, just to be specific, it is the Akerna Corporation, which is traded on NASDAQ with the symbol Kern, that is owned by the Pritzker family. And I think specifically maybe by the Pritzker Group, which is run by J.B. Pritzker and his brother. So, they have splintered off into different directions, but also how convenient that, they're all cousins who are doing their own thing now. They have nothing to do with each other. We'll see that come up in interesting ways later. I actually managed to, I can't even find that Chicago, the Cook County Journal article that you're quoting from on Google right now. That's how well it's been like SEO buried. There's a Bloomberg article, but I'm not a subscriber. I did find the actual lawsuit though. True Social Equity in Cannabis v. Akerna Corp. et al. It basically, it says this case seeks to redress anti-competitive conduct involving the, quote, Chicago cartel in the state-protected cannabis market in Illinois. The Chicago cartel state-protected cannabis operation was started in 2014 as part of a partnership between Michael McLean of the Madigan Racketeering Enterprise, Terrence Gaynor of the U.S. Capitol Police, and heir to the Jim Beam fortune. Wait.
Damn.
Terrence, the heir to the Jim Beam fortune, is a U.S. Capitol Police officer?
What the fuck? Very
I'm sorry. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I misread that. There, no Oxford comma. Terrence Gaynor of the U.S. Capitol Police and heir to the Jim Beam fortune, Benjamin Kovler. Okay, but they still had, it's bizarre that they had like a member of the U.S. Capitol Police engaged in this like weird cannabis cartel in Chicago. That's still like a very weird connection to have. Yeah, it says there was an Associated Press article, former U.S. Capitol Police chief, the chief, at ease with pot industry job in 2015. He got a call from Mike McLean, an old college friend and former Illinois state legislator. McLean had helped Green Thumb launch in Chicago, and he suggested Gaynor work with it to develop security measures. Interesting. So hiring somebody from like a prestigious position in like law enforcement in Washington, D.C. to like run, security for a kind of borderline legal, illegal business sounds a little bit like Robert Peliquin and Intertel, doesn't it?
Yes, it
typical
does.
shit.
Not new on the sun.
Yeah, so Akerna is controlled by the Pritzker family. Surterra is controlled by the Wrigley family. The Pritzkers, Wrigleys, and Kovlers are some of the wealthiest families in Chicago, and in fact, are some of the wealthiest families in the world. Despite this wealth, members of these families have decided to enter the lucrative but dangerous world of marketing, licensing, distributing, and selling marijuana in Illinois and the United States. The Chicago cartel has successfully monopolized the Illinois-branded marijuana market. Branded cannabis is the industry term for a group of marijuana products sold in state-protected retail locations and etc. Yeah, it says Akerna, Green Thumb, Verano, and Surterra are nominally horizontal competitors, but in fact collude together as part of the Chicago cartel. The cartel owns and operates cultivation, manufacturing, and retail dispensary businesses vertically integrated across limited legal supply markets, including Illinois. The cartel can control prices in these markets because supply and demand can be reasonably predicted and forecast by the Chicago cartel members who share price information and collude to charge monopolist prices. Akerna, here we go, the Pritzker company, is key to this information sharing about supply, demand, and price. Akerna is a company that provides technology to Chicago cartel members to track prices, supply, and demand in these state-protected marijuana markets. Akerna also obtains licenses for sellers in state-protected markets for valuable consideration as part of its, quote, clean sweep services. Akerna, quote, competes with Green Thumb, Verano, and Surterra to obtain the licenses in state-protected markets. The cartel charges supra-competitive prices for marijuana and charges the highest prices for marijuana in the United States, in Illinois. According to a member of the Chicago cartel operation, a pound of branded marijuana sells for $300 in California, but sells for over $4,000, like you said, in Illinois in 2022. So yeah, all these companies basically are interlocked. They've worked together for years to keep marijuana prices high in Illinois, in part through sharing supply, demand, and price information via the Pritzker company, Akerna. So, I mean, there you go. That's like a modern illustration right up to fucking today. Of course, maybe the lawyers, maybe, you know, Bert Cantor's acolytes who still represent the Pritzkers would say that's not proven. It's a scurrilous lawsuit. But, you know,
in fact, it got mysteriously dropped for no reason recently.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, for no stated reason. Like just 3 days ago, as of this recording.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, July 22nd, the organization accusing Verano Holdings Corp. and other large cannabis companies, including to monopolize the Illinois market, has ended its federal lawsuit, at least for now, according to a one-page filing submitted to the court. True Social Equity in Cannabis, a Chicago-based group critical to the state's licensing policies and execution, voluntarily dismissed its lawsuit roughly 2 months after submitting the complaint, alleging that Verano, Green Thumb Industries, Surterra Holdings Inc., and Akerna Corp. were violating antitrust laws. U.S. District Drug Mary M. Rowland signed off on the request on Friday. This article's paywalled, but the last thing that it says is the notice does not say why the organization. So I assume there's no stated reason. I wonder. Yeah.
I wonder if they had.
But there's a lot of things you could do to encourage that to happen.
Yeah, it could not to cast any aspersions on that equity in cannabis group. I mean, I think they did us all a service by filing that lawsuit. But
light. Yeah,
I would really love to know what made them change their mind so suddenly.
Yeah.
Maybe Socialists for Pritzker reached out to them and like, dude, come on, he's a big boy. He whips ass.
Yeah,
like, stop.
exactly.
You know, and they're like, oh, you're right. He is the best person that could beat
ass.
Trump in 2024.
True.
Withdraw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but I think it illustrates also something very, an essential truth about the Pritzker family. Because I think after reading that, and of course in Masters of Paradise, it alludes many times, and it does trace the personal connections between like organized crime associates and the Pritzker family, and the overlapping associates, people like Burton Cantor and others that all were kind of swimming in the same milieu. But it did make me kind of wonder, you know, where did the Pritzkers fucking come from? Like, because one thing I had noticed just reading a little bit about them in the last month is that they came relatively late to the game, almost like the Gettys in a way, where, you know, the Gettys really didn't blow up until they owned all that oil in like the early 20th century. And then they rocketed overnight to being like one of the wealthiest American families. The Pritzkers are kind of similar to that in that, you know, they only bought their first hotel, the Los Angeles LAX Hyatt, in I think 1957. Now they had already been successful business people in Chicago up to that point, but their trajectory from like 1957 to today is pretty fucking staggering. Like they turned a small to medium-sized American fortune into an extremely vast American fortune, and one that kind of put its tendrils into, as we've just said today, to like now into politics, into sponsoring, philanthropy and the arts and foreign policy. Certain, think tanks in Washington and foundations, get funded by them and all kinds of shit. So, where did they start? And then I was kind of going on a very labyrinthine kind of research thing last night, and I found this book, which definitely I think we could do an entire kind of solo episode on. But for the purposes of today's episode, all I did was Control F Pritzker in it. And it popped up like 60 or 70 hits. And so this book is called Supermob by Gus Russo, which came out in 2006. And it's really, the main focus of it is the mysterious lawyer Sidney Korshak, who I think we might have brought up before in kind of like weird scenes adjacent kind of stuff that we've researched. He was a very powerful Los Angeles-based attorney that originally was from Chicago, and he was always seen as kind of like the ultimate fixer and the ultimate kind of mob lawyer that kind of was always doing things behind the scenes. He has weird connections, I think, to like Robert Evans. I think we talked about that, the famous producer in the 70s. I think that like Korshak almost like selected him as like his guy in Hollywood. So it could bring up all kinds of weird thorny things about like The Godfather and like the new Hollywood era and all the things we've talked about so far with like the Lansky syndicates kind of infiltration and really like intermingling with Hollywood going way back, even to like the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and all that shit. So this book is like primarily about Korshak, but it's also about the milieu that he came out of and the kind of network that he fronted for his entire career in the 20th century. And it turns out that one of the main kind of figures in this kind of broader network from Chicago that Korshak was kind of working with was the Pritzker family, way back, from the beginning. And so this book, I'm just going to maybe go through a couple things that are in it to provide us some background and like history on the trajectory of the Pritzker fortune and how did they make all that money, because I think I thought, just going through it, control effing, that maybe I would find some Gustavus Myers kind of shit. And boy, did I ever. In fact, I found a lot of wild shit. I will try to not like take too much time on it, but it's going to underline like who the fucking Pritzker family is even before Castle Bank and all that stuff in the 70s. And, not even to talk about anything they're doing today, but like the origins of their fortune, it turns out kind of exist at this perfect nexus point between the respectable overworld and the dirty underworld of American capitalism.
For access to the full-length episode, subscribe to the Hour of Wrigleys at patreon.com/subliminaljihad.
This is the unedited J.B. Pritzker, Rod Blagojevich, FBI Wiretap.
I hear that Madigan is pushing labor to try to push the Obama administration to put him in somewhere so they can clear the field for Lisa. So is that interesting? And Madigan's dropping dimes on him because Resco is connected to the Broadway bank, and the feds are looking at his bank. Saul Madigan's how he operates. Oh wow! So he's trying to get Lisa clear field.
I see. So let me just throw some odd idea. If it were true, what I heard, that it were real,
it could be. I mean, I'm just thinking that I'll give you my read on it.
Well, I heard, what I heard was somebody who's close to election.
Oh, hold on, JB. Hang on one second. Hang on. Hey, go ahead.
I actually am calling you about, I think you appointed replacement, don't you?
Ooh, interesting. Let's think about that. You interested in that?
Yeah, that's the one I would want.
Now, how about this scenario?
It makes a lot of sense.
Listen, you're extremely open-minded, man. But don't rule yourself out completely on that Senate thing. That may not be. Look, you got to see this list, huh?
I'm sure you got it, yeah.
I've got a lot of factors to consider. I have to factor, what do I want to do? Where am I going? At some point I've got to support, provide for my family. In a perfect world, provide for your family, do good, keep some sort of viability, and get back in the game at some point, if there's any opportunity, but not at this level. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If the Senate thing ever happened for you, my strong recommendation would be, you got to do it and say you're running. If putting a guy like you there for just 2 years, I don't know.
I mean, thinking about the political problem, and the only way to make the political problem go away in that scenario would be, that I can think of, is to say he's not running for re-election, which doesn't do anybody any good, so it's probably not a good scenario.
No.
The treasurer thing's a different thing.
Yeah. You did. This is a good option. Keep going. Talk to me.
Sure, it's putting a business person in a business person's job.
Yep.
I think I would be able to get people like Bill Brodsky at the CBOE and people like Terry Duffy at the Merck to sort of stand up independently and say, we're suggesting to the governor that this is a good idea. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, listen, I think it's exciting.
I haven't called either one of those guys to ask them to do that. It's a brand new idea here, but I throw that out at you. And finally, look, even if none of those things make sense for you, I'd love to help you in any way I can, you know, with any decision making you decide to, you know, that you're going to get involved in. You know, I for whatever it's worth, you know, some of the players I know, and I would be happy to act as a little bit as an intermediary with the people that you don't want to have it, or the people you do want to have it, or whatever. So I just offer myself and my service to you.
Okay, but what do you do if you're me, okay? And, you know, I don't give a what these the media say. I really believe we've done great things for people in Illinois. This Obama ran on my record, okay? He said he brought health care to kids. You know what I'm saying? He voted for it. You know, he's talking about a capital bill extending health care for working families. 700,000 people have gotten it. He's talking about not raising taxes on it.
The only reason to do it is if he'll appoint you to something.
Well, but listen, I guess that's, you know, he and I were tonied up. Probably like to keep, you know, that's another thing that's so galling. No one will love Tony longer than me. But what if, and I'm telling you, this could happen, because I know how Madigan is. He says, I'll give you health care, give you a capital bill. Okay? I'll balance what works with you to balance the budget the way you want to do it. I'll raise taxes on people. You make Lisa the senator. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That puts me in a moral dilemma. Because of all of the prospective candidates, what dealing with her, suing us to support Bush kicking 35,000 poor people off of health care.
Yeah, I know.
You know, all that.
Let's do it. You should do it. I'd take that.
Morally repugnant. I probably have to do it.
I'd do it.
Okay, and then there's an AG I can appoint, JB.
You're doing the right thing for the people.
Are you a lawyer?
Yeah.
There's an AG that I appoint.
Oh, that's it.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, there you go.
I mean, don't rule that one out.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not promising. I'm just saying these are all scenarios. What?
A lot of things to think about. Let's continue the conversation another time because I got to run into. But Rod, I really, you know, and look, I don't want to seem like I'm, you know, out here looking for a job. Honestly, I'd like to help you, and I also think there's probably something I might be able to do. But the treasurer thing actually seems totally logical to me. It's not harmful to you.
If he ends up going there, I'll call you right away, and we'll talk about it seriously and get focused.
All right, man.
But there's other options. Don't rule them out. I mean, I'm not promising anything, but in my mind, you're there somewhere.
Well, you're kind.
All right. Okay. I'll see you. All right, bye.